Any comments for the Maker's Movement? Today we were creating this Slimline shaker card. Let's go over the products I used to create this card. The Maker's Movement Trick or Treat stamp and die set. And we'll only be using 2 dies from this set. We'll be using the 2 pumpkin pieces here, the background, and the little frame. We'll be using this not only to create our shaker, but the other pumpkins featured in the card. The Maker's Movement Give Thanks stamp set. This has a variety of images and sentiments, but we're only going to use the Welcome Autumn sentiment right there. The Maker's Movement Clear Acetate sheets. The Maker's Movement Double-Sided Adhesive foam. The Maker's Movement Mini Maker die cutting machine. We use that to die cut our pieces today. And some shaker sprinkles. These are the Maker's Movement shaker sprinkles in Constellation, Hocus Pocus, and for Hocus Pocus we're only going to use the little orangey stars that are in here. From Constellation we're going to use the white and the blue circle, the white stars and blue circles. I think there's like a yellowy and orangey that I pull out as well. And then from Sweet Tooth I pull out some white circles and some orangey ones and these little peppermint candies that are blue and white swirled. I'm trying to point them out here, but I don't think you can see them that well either way. Okay, so I also brought in from my own stash a little bits of copper sprinkles. So in 2 different sizes and designs. I did that because our specialty paper is a copper cardstock that you see right here. These will be used to create the frames for our pumpkins. The specialty one will be for our shaker, and the other 2 oranges will be for the other pumpkins. Now I have some pattern paper here. They all have some foliage on it, and that'll be for the back of our pumpkins. A thin strip here of cream cardstock for our sentiment, and some cream cardstock, which is a layering cardstock, and brown cardstock, which are both 65-pound weight. You're only going to see a little bit of this brown, but it'll be nice because it'll be a nice frame. And our 110-pound top folding Slimline card. I don't even know what an A-line card is. Slimline card. Okay, let me clear all this so we can get started on our project. So first we're going to start cutting using our mini maker, and we're going to die cut all the backings to our pumpkins. We're going to use the thin die cut of the pumpkin first. I'm going to adhere that using some washi tape, and we're going to run it through our mini maker. I'll do that for all 3 of our pumpkin background pieces. And I will zip right through it. You won't see me cut all 3, but I do cut them all here. Now we'll also use the same die to cut our acetate. I'm just trimming it down here to make sure. I didn't want to trim it beforehand. I want to make sure I had enough. And I'll run that through our die cutting machine here. And that would be our window. Now we're done with that die, and we're going to pull in the frame die. We'll first cut our specialty paper, and I'm using our Maker's Movement tools to poke them out of the frame. Now I'm using that same die to cut our foam adhesive, and it cuts right through it so well. That shows the power of the machine and the nice detail of the dies. Now we'll just save the inner piece for another card. Okay, so we're done die cutting, so I'm going to clear everything out so we can start building our card. To build our card, we're going to start by layering our cream cardstock onto our brown cardstock. So I'm just going to use a little liquid glue. Okay, I'm going to unclog my liquid glue and then use my Wicked? No, it's not wicked. It's liquid glue. And I'm gonna layer the cream cardstock, like I said, onto the brown. And as you can see, it's like a smidgen of a brown showing through. It creates a nice little frame. Now I want to work on my card base, but it's popping up, so I'm just going to use a little bit of a washi tape inside, and that'll keep it nice and flat while I work on it. Put a little liquid glue on the back of that and attach it to the card base. So now we're going to work on our shaker card. I'm going to get out all my bits that I need. So to create our shaker card, you'll need the layering background, our frame, your foam, and your clear acetate sheet. Our clear acetate sheets come with a protective covering on both sides, so you have to remove it. And I used a little pokey or piercing tool to get a little corner of it and peel it off. So I put a bead of glue onto the frame, and then I spread it with my finger because I don't want it oozing onto the acetate. Press that down. Now I'm going to flip it over, get the piercing tool again to help me remove the plastic film. There we go. So now our window is nice and clear. So now I'm going to adhere the foam to the frame of our acetate here. And let me explain something to you. Me and Straight, not friends. Not sure why. I try, but he doesn't want to be friends with me. So, luckily, the Maker's Movement double-sided foam is great because you barely touch it and it gives you enough time to peel it up, wiggle it, get it straight. Once you press that foam down, it is on for life. It isn't going anywhere. But while it's nicely tapped down, you can move it around. All right, back to the to the card. So I put some anti-static powder in there using my paintbrush to smooth it around. I'm going to put my shaker bits inside, making sure I get them all in there. And then I'm going to smooth them out because I don't want any of them layering on top, because then they get stuck and they don't shake, and that's not fun. So I'm just smoothing them out. Then I'll remove the back of the adhesive foam protective layer there, and then I'm going to place the background pattern paper. And now our shaker is working. Alright, so now we're going to set our shaker to the side, and we're going to repeat the process of adhering the frames onto our pattern paper pumpkins. Yes, I know, that was a tongue twister right there. So I'm going to little frame, you're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a little bead of glue on the little frame and adhere to the base. Now, like I said, we're going to have two flat pumpkins in our shaker. So this one's almost like a tone on tone. Up close, or in real life, which is away, you could see it, the frame sets off nicely. And then this one has a nice lighter frame and this lighter background. They all have the same motif, the same floral motif there. And this is the basic layout I'm going to do. So I'm going to bring in my card base so that we can start adhering our pumpkins. Now I wanted our pumpkins to have stems. So to do this, all I did was cut a piece of brown cardstock. So I pulled out I'll try that again. A lighter brown cardstock and a darker one. To create our little stems, I just cut a 1 inch by 1.5 inch long piece of brown cardstock, and then I just cut from one corner to the other in a curve to create that stem. I hope that made sense, but you get the gist. Basically, you just want a little piece of cardstock. If you don't want to make it curved, you could just put it straight. Now I'm adhering the flat pumpkins first, one on each end, and I want them towards the bottom. And now I'm going to tuck in my little stems, and I'm using liquid glue because it gives me a little wiggle room, time to wiggle. See it here, my pumpkin's too high. Gotta move it down, fix my stems. Now I'm gonna adhere our shaker. And I wanna make sure it overlaps both of those pumpkins just a bit. And now add its stem. Adjust my little stem there, and now press everybody into place. I also tied off some cute little bows from Jute, and all I do is just create 2 bunny ears here, and then I just loop them around and pull it through and pull tight onto it, and then you can just start adjusting till you get the right size that you want. So that's all I'm doing here is adjusting. I know I'm a bit off camera, and I'm sorry about that. Just pulling, you pull tight, then you pull on the ends little by little, and then I trim off all the extra. So I'm going to adhere these with a little bead of glue, 1 to each pumpkin. Just press them into the glue, and I do that to all 3. Once this is done, I'll set our card aside to dry. While that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment. So I'm going to get the Welcome Autumn sentiment here from the Give Thanks stamp set. Pull in my Versafine Onyx black ink. I'm trying to get my sentiment straight. Now I'm going to take off, just rub my hand on there just to take off any little oils that may be put on there for, shipping and so forth. I stamp it off once. Now I'm going to stamp it onto that little cream colored cardstock strip. It's wonderful. That's a nice stamp. Okay, so now I know I want to place it here, but it's too long, so I'm going to trim it down a bit. I want it to fit within the pumpkin. And then I'm going to fishtail on each side of the little strip. So I just create a fishtail. To create a fishtail, if you don't want to use or don't have a die, or don't want to use a die, what you just do is you cut straight into the center, and then come from each corner to that center. So meet up at that cut. And I just flip it around on either side, just so it's easier for me. Alright, so once I have my 2 fishtails done, I'm going to adhere my little sentiment onto my shaker pumpkin. I do not want to use wet glue because I don't want it oozing all over the place. So I'm just going to bring in some Imagine Crafts tear tape and put a little bit on the back of my sentiment here. Remove the backing from it and place it onto the pumpkin and press it in place. Trim the excess of our bows here, because I don't want those long tails there. Once that's done, basically our shaker is finished. And you see there's some static on there. It'll settle down once you play around with it a bit. So let's go over the products I use. The Give Thanks stamp set, the Trick or Treat stamp and die set, the Constellation, Hocus Pocus, and Sweet Tooth shaker bits or shaker sprinkles, the mini maker for die cutting, the double-sided adhesive, and the acetate sheets, all from the Maker's Movement. Of course, I'll have everything listed in the description box below with links. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you found some inspiration.